And greetings. This video will deal with the replacement of the condenser motor and fan from a 30 plus year old Rheem high efficiency condenser unit. A couple of days ago I noticed that I had no air coming from outside of this. I could hear the compressor running but didn't see the fan running. And so I came out here to take a look, and this is what I found. The motor, which I'm guessing is the original, the shaft had actually rusted off from the original fan blade, and the fan just came off. Gee, how about that? So what we're going to show you today is and yes, obviously I've already pulled it, but I'm going to show you how to figure out which one you need, because there is another issue which I will now show you. That issue is that I have no idea what the model number is of this. I came down here. This is supposed to be all the information, your serial number, model number, all the technical information. It's basically all but gone. You cannot read it anymore. You can read some of the original printed materials or information, but when it came up here to the serial number and the model number, it's like it was a secondary print and they had all but worn away. Well, I did some close-up shots of it and was able to differentiate that there was 4 letters, 3 numbers, and then 3 letters after that, and I was able to differentiate that that was a JAS or a JAZ, I think it was, and then there was actually an A and another A in the first 4, and from that I was able to look at a list I found online of these particular units and was able to determine which model number I was, since it was mostly missing. So taking this thing apart actually is very easy. There's not a lot to these units, so I think no, you shouldn't have any trouble in working on these, as long as you're not dealing with the Freon. As long as it's still working and your compressor's still working, everything I'm going to tell you is very doable and for the average homeowner should not be a problem, especially these condenser units. This particular unit, they made a lot of different versions of these that were almost identical. They really, I was checking things online, and I mean like over like a 15-20 year period, they really didn't change at all. They're bigger now because they've had to put larger compressors, because the Freon that I have in this particular unit is very illegal. You can't buy it anymore. In fact, they've changed it 3 times since this unit was originally installed. But since the Freon is, everything is still in it, everything is tight, the compressor's working, I'm good. So if you're in the same situation, here's what you do. You got 4 screws on the top, 1 here, there, and back in there. And then this whole unit just grab a hold of it and the whole thing just pops back. And of course on the top here you got your compressor, and down here this is all your control units. This is your contactor, a relay for any other name, and your 2 run capacitors. This one actually goes to the fan motor. This one goes to the compressor. I'm going to change these out as well. I mean, with this unit being 30 years old and never having those changed, it's kind of silly not to at this point, because it's like 10 bucks to buy the 2 of them. This thing's like $3 and that's like $6. So, you know, if you get it with free shipping, you're gold. And I've ordered those. They haven't arrived yet, but I did order those. Now, as far as this, I've already taken the motor out, but this just pops up, and then you can see in the bottom there, that's where the motor would mount, and we're going to show you how that all mounts up now. Now, you may not have that same problem, that your the sticker on the outside may actually show you what you need to know, but I had to glean information from the motor. It actually told me that this was a 203 to 230, or 208, I'm sorry, to 230 voltage, 1/6 horsepower. And I actually had, since I had the original size here, I was able to find a suitable replacement from this one website. Okay, the next thing I had to determine was the fan, and they have many different styles of these, different lengths, different pitches of the fan blades. So I had to determine what I originally had here. So I measured, and from point to point was 18 inches exactly. Then it was, okay, how do I figure out the pitch of this? Well, so I kind of looked at it from a different angle to determine where my center line is, as far as, what the level line is. And then using one of these, was able to determine what the angle is, the pitch on these particular blades, and I came out with about 25 degrees. When I went online, they actually had one 18 inches at a 27 degree pitch. They also have them at 28, 29, 30. So I got the 27, since that was as close as I was going to get to the original. And right over here is the replacement. You'll note that they are basically identical. They have the same style, same construction. So apparently after 30 years they just never change it. It works. Stick with it. So the next thing is attacking the motor and moving this motor mount, which this piece fits in down here and attaches with 4 screws. So I needed to save that part. So there were 4 nuts that were holding this piece on. So I took them out and then said, okay, well, there's the new motor. Let me flip it over so I can show you the other side here. And in theory, this should just fit right on there. Well, it does and it doesn't. The holes here actually line up. I get it here. The holes actually line up to the screws that hold the top and bottom together here. So in other words, it comes all the way, see, can I show it here? This goes all the way through to the top. And I had to take one of these screws out to show you that. And then I went back and I looked at the original motor, and you can see that they modified this thing 30 odd years ago. They took out the original bolts, or screws rather, and they installed 4 longer screws through it so that this actually sticks up, because this is the same size motor, and these particular screws are just a little bit short because they don't fit all the way through for the mount of this. So, and then you can see that they cut these. So now I'm gonna have to go to the hardware store and find a stainless steel version of this. It's like almost like a thin lag bolt that's just a little bit longer, and then cut the ends off and use that. So we will pick up as soon as I get those. So here we are a day later. Unfortunately, this particular screw is 4 inches, and it's a 832, and you cannot find anything larger than a 4-inch 832. So I ended up having to go out and get some all thread. Got some stainless steel all thread 832 and cut these down to 4 1/4 inches each. So these will be my new bolts that will go through here that will mount this plate. I ended up putting acorn nuts on, and I got some of these. So we're going to go and take the rest of these bolts out, and we're going to put in these with this plate, and we should be good to go. One more thing to remember when you're assembling the putting in these new screws is to put these little nuts on here, because this is on all four posts here, and that's because this is indented, and this will level it up with that, so that when you go to put this on, I can't get it to fit, but anyway, so that it doesn't press down on it. In other words, it's got like it's a surface. So don't forget those. I was lucky; these came with the original screws that were on this motor, so I just reused them. Okay, and now we have finished putting these in. We have the all four attached here, and I put on this end, put the acorn nuts, 4 of them, and 4, and now that's done. We can go ahead and put that back in. This then is the reattachment of the motor to the top piece. We haven't put the fan on yet. We'll do that next. First thing that I thought I would note here is the way the wires run. You have the wires coming out here, so that orients to right here. You'll notice that there's a little cutout here, and that's for the wires to run through. It'll go through a little chaseway here. This little piece just will go over the top of it to protect it, and goes in place with 2 screws. And that's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. There will be 4 screws that will go into the bottom here that obviously come in from the other side here and over here. So let's go ahead and screw those in, and we'll go on to the next part. Alrighty, and now the motor is installed into the top of the frame, and as I said before, it's just 2 screws here, and come around, 2 screws here, and then we come around to this side, and this is the wire chase. You can see the wire comes into here, and there's 2 screws here and here that's holding this little plate in, and then your wiring comes out there, and that hooks up to your to the capacitors and the contactor on the other end. Alrighty, the next thing, and now we're on to the fans. Now obviously the one on the left here is the original, and this is the new one. I'm going to put the new one on, judging by how far down this thing was, seeing as how close it was to the end where it was actually connected, where it rusted out. I'm going to try to do the exact same with this one. I don't know the specific reason as to why they put it where they did, but I'm going to put it back there. So now we have this over here. We're going to lower this back down, and I'm going to guide those cables. We're going to go right down here into that hole. So that's where it's going to end up. So now it's in. Obviously, since I only had I don't have 3 hands to do this. The cables are through here, and this is in, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look down in there, the tip of the blade is right along the edge. Yeah, it's hard to see, but there's an edge here, if you see, on the inside of the fins, cooling fins, and that tip is right exactly where it needs to be at the top. So pitch is right, placement on the shaft is correct. Now we'll hook everything up to the capacitors and the contactor, and away we go. Obviously you have the 2, and I've already pre-pulled these, so I know what their numbers are, and I ordered them. This is one of the replacements. This one was, let's see, this one was 3 microfarads at 370, and this one was 35 at 370. You can buy these at multiple outlets. Be careful about the size on this one. This one was actually about 2 inches, and the original one I got was 1 3/4, so it didn't fit down in there. The wiring obviously is you have the orange and the brown coming over here that will attach to this one, and then the 2 reds on this one. It doesn't make any difference which way they go because these are non-polarized. Remember, this is AC, not DC, so they are non-polarized capacitors, and they are run capacitors, not start capacitors. The start capacitors are much higher, 200 to 300 microfarads, so they'd have to have a big boost, whereas these are just run capacitors, which don't have quite that much. These come out, these screws here, if I can show you, these screws just hold these in place. There's one at either end here. Same with this one. I already took these out. There was one there, here, and they just kind of hold it down, so to speak. So you just pop those screws out and then pop in your capacitor, put the wiring back on, put the screws back in, you're done. It's that simple. Okay, so got one in, and now we're going to do the second one. Here's the original, and there's the information. Oops, let me turn it around here. So see that? That is the information on this particular capacitor. So I got a new one. It's the same, it's just a little smaller. And unfortunately, because it's a little older, it's not as thick. The diameter is not the same as the hole that has to go into. So I got a rubber O-ring at, of all places, Lowe's. They had a little pack there, and so I bought that, and that fits right over the top of it. And then that will just fit right down inside here, just like that. Now I just have to move these 2 wires down onto there, and we will be done. And there is the finish. Screws in place, cables changed.